y'all. How you doing? Welcome back. We're looking at American things other countries find weird. So we've looked at things similar to this before. These are always really interesting. I guess America is just really different, right? We do a lot of things that the rest of the world is like, yo, what is up with that? So let's learn about this. This is from the infographic show. Hopefully some of these are really fun and interesting. So be linked in the description down below so you can check it out. Here we go, guys. Let's check it out.
Weird things Americans do. A bucket of coffee, please. Okay, so maybe it's not only Americans that do this, but we reckon Americans excel at it. In a story by British author Julian Barnes in the book Lemon Table, one elderly British woman points out how waiters in some restaurants habitually keep filling up her coffee. It's quite nice, in fact, but in Britain, such service would cost you a small fortune, and Americans seem to drink coffee by the gallon. Go to France or Italy, and in many cafes, you'll find your cup of coffee isn't cheap and comes in a tiny cup or glass. Americans are mass consumers of coffee, and we doubt any country can match it. US comedian Bill Hicks made a joke about Americans and their coffee habit before he died. The joke goes, he asked for a coffee in one restaurant, and the waiter said, "You want the 32 ounce or the large?" "How big is the large?" asked Hicks, and the waiter replied, "You'll want to pull your car around back, I'll start the pump." The beast of
Yeah, obviously that's a little bit exaggerated. Obviously, no one gets literal buckets of coffee, right? But it is a good metaphor because I'm sure compared to a lot of other countries, we drink a lot. And that doesn't surprise me. I wouldn't know. I haven't been way abroad over in Europe or Asia or something and gotten coffee. But I can just guess that it is more here, and it's very American to, especially nowadays, right? You see people go even through a drive-through, not even at a cafe. They go to something like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, and they get a giant, what is it, like a 32 ounce, I guess it would be, giant cup rather of coffee, and it's funny, right? It's very American, I guess. So as someone not from America, if you're watching this outside the U.S., is that something you would do? Is that something that would be kind of fun to you, or is it just totally ridiculous? You gotta let me know.
Of the feast. So you probably already know this, and you don't need to have visited the USA to have heard about it, but visitors often remark on how damn big portions are there. We've talked about this before, but not the real beast eaters. You see, in the States, all over the place, you've got those eat this ridiculously large, heart-stopping, gut-busting meal in 30 minutes and you get it for free. Godzilla would struggle to walk out of that deal without begrudgingly pulling out his wallet, yet there are names on the plaque on the wall. But why would anyone literally make themselves sick and pay for it? Only an American could explain. The question was asked on Quora about this, and most people said food is cheap and big portions sell to the majority of people in everyday restaurants.
So before I let him finish there, that is a weird one. I gotta admit, that's weird. Not all Americans enjoy that at all. I'm one that does not. So on the generic topic, portions are bigger. I'm all for that. That I don't think is weird. I think that's excellent because food is reasonably priced here. It's not super expensive, and you get a big portion. So typically, it's very common that people eat a quarter of it, maybe half of it, and then they box it up and they have another meal for later that night, the next day, the day after that maybe. You keep it in the refrigerator and you have some leftovers from the meal you purchased while you were out. I think that's not a bad thing. But on this more extreme example, which I'm glad they brought up, I never thought of that before. I guess we do have a lot of that weird sort of like food challenge things where some restaurants will have a huge portion, humongous, like ridiculous, unhealthy portion of some food, or you have to eat multiple portions, like, I don't know, like 10 burgers or something in a certain time, and you get, a cash prize or something. I don't know. I don't know how they all work, but they're really weird. It's something I've never participated in. I just don't want to. It's not something that I feel like would be pleasant at all. Yuck. But I also can't because if you didn't know, I cannot eat a lot. I can't eat a lot at once. If I want to eat, if I'm really hungry all day, I can eat, multiple times throughout the day, no problem. But I have to have breaks. I cannot eat a lot in one sitting. I just can't do it. My body does not let me. And between stomach, a small stomach, it just won't expand for me. And of course, if I eat too fast, that's a thing I cannot do either. My throat won't let me do that. So yeah, the beast of the feast is something I would this American cannot do.
But we like this answer, which kind of flips it. Your question might well be turned around to ask, why are portions in the rest of the world so small? The United States has a good food supply, and people expect value for their money. It's everywhere. You won't find this happening all over the place in the States, but you will likely be called sir, or for a woman, ma'am, at some point in your trip. It's very polite, and visitors will have nothing against it, but being called sir will feel strange for most. Perhaps if you're in the armed forces, it might work. Even calling cops sir seems weird to outsiders. For most people, you have to be knighted to be called sir, although admittedly, some school kids in the UK might call their teacher sir. For Americans, it's a sign of respect. For anyone else, it's over the top. You'll find
that is interesting, right? These are actually pretty fascinating for me. When we have the same words, English is spoken across many, many, many countries throughout the world, and when we use them differently. The United States tends to do this quite frequently, where we use words in a totally different fashion and more often than you would hear in most other countries. So this is one I did not know, but it makes sense. It's funny. We say sir. It could be to anyone, right? It doesn't have to be army or a cop or whatever. It can be anyone that you're just being really nice. You have a lot of respect for them, whatever. It's very common to hear yes, ma'am, yes, sir. I'm not sure where the roots of that come from, but yeah, it is interesting, I think.
Find it's more common in the south of the U.S.
It is.
Smokes and drugs. This is weird to just about anyone outside of the USA, the fact that at some pharmacies or drugstores, you can buy cigarettes. While many pharmacies in the US stopped doing this, you can still find it. It does seem rather odd that the place selling you things to improve your health would be selling you those cancerous sticks of tobacco.
And that, my friends, that is the most American thing ever. Capitalism. That's business. Big business. It is totally messed up, but yeah. Tobacco makes a lot of money. Pharmaceuticals here make a lot of money. Just get them both. And if the cigarettes prevent you from getting better, I mean, oh well, they're making a lot of money. So they're fine.
2014, CVS pharmacies in the US stopped doing this, stating, "We came to the decision that cigarettes and providing healthcare just don't go together in the same setting." Took a while to figure that out. Beer everywhere. While you must be 21 to buy beer in the United States, you can get it in some surprising places. One such place is the aforementioned pharmacy, but you can add to that. You can find beer sold in vending machines, at some clothing stores, some coffee shops, at some drive-thrus, and even some special hospitals will have beer for sale.
Okay, whoa, what America are we talking about here? In vending machines? That sounds awesome, not gonna lie. We have no shortage of vending machines here, but I've always experienced just water and some sort of juices and, of course, pop like Coke or Pepsi or, 7-Up or something. That I've never seen beer in a vending machine. Wow, that sounds cool. At some clothing stores, the rest of these, yeah, it depends, right? It depends. It might be a little more on the rare side in all of these, like especially like drive-thrus. I've never gone to a McDonald's drive-thru and had beer as a choice. So yeah, maybe some of these are quite far-fetched as well, but I do agree that you can get beer in a lot of places. It's readily available here. It's not hard to find.
These admittedly are rare. Accident lawyers. If you've watched the show Breaking Bad, you'll know there's a lawyer who will make sure you get paid for an accident you had or even didn't quite have. In the US, you can see signs for these sometimes sleazy guys on TV or even see their shiny white teeth on giant advertising boards. This used to be weird in the UK, but over the last few years, the Brits are also getting in on accident claims, and their TVs are also full of nice people saying, "Did you have an accident? Did you know you can get compensated for that? Call this number." Drug dealers on TV. The last thing you need when all
that is, I guess, American origin. And yeah, I think I've talked about that before. It's very common to see, the pharmaceutical ads, the medicine ads, and of course the lawyer ads. I quite enjoy the lawyer ones. I think they're funny. They're usually really cheesy and goofy and funny, I think on purpose. And, people don't take them too seriously. But with that one especially, I'm kind of not surprised that it's rubbing off elsewhere, maybe Australia, maybe the UK, wherever else. I think that is pretty funny, actually.
Really need is some exercise and clean living is someone on TV telling you can buy a possibly addictive, happy drug that can solve all your problems. These commercials might have calming music, birds flying over rainbows, people skipping and dancing through the park, and
Yeah.
then someone saying a wonder drug made that happen. The original
God.
Zoloft ad told you just shouldn't have to feel this way. Maybe not, but to many Europeans, pushing it on TV seems a bit too much. Drinking
I
games.
agree.
Now for something a bit more fun, but still related to drugs, if you visit America, and certainly if you're young, you might get caught up in any number of drinking games they have over there. Beer
Right.
pong, that's gotta be American. Or what about truth or dare? Works better when alcohol has oiled the inhibitions. Or quarters, no cursing, no first names, no right hand accepting, no chance of staying sober. There's even Drinkapalooza, an actual board game for drinking. In most other countries, drinking isn't always that much fun. What happens in America stays
Now, is that true? Is that true? I know. I think I've heard. God, a lot of different countries have a pretty strong drinking culture. It might be different than ours, done in a different way. Drinks enjoyed at different places in different ways. That's fine. But I'm pretty sure there are other countries that I would say enjoy drinking, right? And drink, a decent amount. So I sort of disagree with that, right? I don't think like we're the only ones that drink for fun. I feel like that's a kind of a crazy statement, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
in America. Okay, so many of those videos out there on YouTube showing the glaring ignorance of some Americans about the rest of the world were made by Americans, so we don't feel like we are picking on Americans too much here. But it's not only just world history that some folks from the USA might not have read up on. We heard a story about a guy that asked an American friend when traveling in Europe what accent she thought she had. She replied, "I don't have one." She thought she spoke pure English. Another tale we heard was of a young man from West Virginia who met some Brits while traveling in Israel. He asked the Brits how the highways were in England. The Brits, jokingly, replied they didn't have cars and still used the horse and cart. The guy replied, "Wow." When the question was asked on Quora why some, and we say some, Americans don't know much about the world, the answers were mostly related to the education system, focusing only on the US and the country already being so big and diverse.
I'm glad to see a video weigh in on that. Obviously, a lot of Americans are way more educated than the world gives credit for. A lot of us are into the whole world and geography and different cultures. That's great. But I do admit that a lot of people like that, including myself, that want to see the whole world, that want to learn about the whole world and not just America, everything. Admittedly, we have to do that, sort of on your own. You have to really seek that out and want to do that because the American education system, in my experience, it's very heavily biased on just learning about North America, basically. The ratio of time they spend on that versus the rest of the world is kind of mind-blowing. So that's a reason for that. If people don't really go out and seek information on the whole world, they're going to know maybe some about the U.S. and not much else, unfortunately, because that's just how it's structured here, I guess.
The American writer and intellectual Noam Chomsky wrote that the reason why Americans know so much about sports but so little about world affairs is because that's just the way the system was set up for most people. Is it weird? You'll find it everywhere, but those videos we see do seem to make some Americans seem quite ignorant of the world outside America. Let's just say if you can't get close to pointing where North Korea is on a map, but hate the country, there's a problem. Peeping Tom. Okay, let's stop being so harsh now. We'll turn to something amusing and ask why in the USA, some toilet stalls have such big gaps between the doors and the outer piece of the stall, so people can...
This one always comes up. I think we've all heard this by now. Yeah, the gaps are extremely big, extremely revealing. They're not private. I will complain about that one. I think that's valid. I think most Americans would agree on this. The stalls, the public bathroom stalls here are just ridiculous, man. You do feel vulnerable. They're really weird. I don't know why they do it. End of story.
And virtually watch you do your private business. Many Americans have asked this online. Foreigners ask this a lot too. One guy on Twitter writes, when you're sitting on the toilet and you make eye contact with someone through the little crack in the door. A woman asks, what's the point of a toilet stall door when there is a 2-inch gap on each side?
Agreed.
Most answers we can find were related to safety, to know someone is in there, to get you out quickly, and making it easier to clean. There's a huge debate on TripAdvisor about the topic, but no one seems to know the answer. How are you? This could be said to be similar in other countries, but when Americans ask how are you, they are not usually looking for an answer.
Right.
It's just a way of saying hello. An extensive reply about your ingrown toenail, your setback with Bitcoin, and the fact your father didn't give you enough attention as a kid is probably not what your interlocutor was wanting or expecting. You can just answer with hey. The real home of football. Okay.
That's a good one. Greetings are funny because I do feel like there are many different greetings in many different countries, right? It's something that can be unique to a lot of different places. And naturally, ours may not make sense to other people. But yeah, a lot of people just walking by, hey, how are you? It just means hello, right? You can just say, doing good, and you, and then it never gets answered. And it's okay. Or you could just say, hey, howdy, doing great. It's basically rhetorical, right? It's not a real conversation. It's funny. I don't know why it is that way, but it is.
As we've just had the World Cup of a game called football, we might as well go ahead and say that the rest of the world thinks America is weird for calling its strange stop and start game football.
Yeah.
But we should tell you that it was the Brits that first called the game soccer, which is a diminutive of the words association football.
Yes, I have argued with people in real life before, not necessarily online, but I heard a long time ago, I read that as a kid somewhere, that people think, oh, soccer is so American. Why do Americans call it soccer? I did read that over in Great Britain, they coined the term soccer way before we did. So
the word sock comes from association, and The Guardian tells us Brits back then loved to put an ER at the end of words. Later, the Americans naturally called it soccer just as the Brits did. Then the Brits decided the word soccer sounded too American and let it go. Now, the Brits and Europeans had been playing this football thing since medieval times, and it was called football back then too. But there were many types of football, including rugby. That's why the word soccer became a thing. Americans just took the word football for their own game, just as Europeans had done. But to be honest, American football is much closer to rugby, so it's still a bit weird. But let's just finish with saying, if any Brit or European gives you a hard time about calling the game soccer, just tell them what we told you. They started it. You have no defense, though, for calling a game played mostly with the hands football.
Agreed. They started the soccer thing, but yes, if they bring up the NFL, National Football League, it's such a big, huge followed sport here in America. I feel like it's too late. They could never change it. I agree that it's weird. I don't know why it's called football. Admittedly, it doesn't really make sense in relation to how the game works. But yeah, it is called football, and I think it's too big to change. Too many people are just used to calling it football here.
So, can you add to this list? Have you visited America?
Okay, so that was a pretty quick one. These are always kind of fun, and this one had a couple different ones, and I have seen before. So that wasn't too bad, though. This is from the infographic shows. Will be linked in the description down below, so you can watch the whole thing uninterrupted. And I tell you what, you got to throw a thumbs up, a like on this video if you learned something new, agreed with this, maybe enjoyed this. I do appreciate it. It helps the video out immensely. And, of course, you can subscribe. Join this amazing world community we have on this channel. It is the best. You won't regret it. And, yeah, I really want to hear from you on this. What are some other things you would like to add to this? Something that you just think is so weird over here in the U.S., or Canada, or something here in North America. If you're from somewhere else in the world, maybe you would like to throw in something weird for where you're from that maybe I would find weird. That's talk down there. Anyway, guys, that being said, my name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.